Hello guys, I hope that we are all doing very well. Welcome back to the channel for another video. Hope the weather is nicer wherever you are when you're watching this right now, because the weather here is miserable with capital M. I have just got in the car to head to the gym and I am basically soaking wet, which is great. I'll take it over the hot weather because, to be honest, I've been struggling in the heat as of late with getting heavier and it being hot, not the most fun. But today, we're off to the gym. We're going to go train legs. I've got one of what I would say is like my biggest leg sessions. It's my longest session. It has the most volume. I have the most work in it. It's a very all-round demanding session, but as a result, a very fun session. So we've been through before in the last leg day video, more of like a glute ham focus, whereas this is just all-round legs. So if you're wanting to develop your legs as a whole, as am I, then follow along this session today. And yeah, we'll go through the ins and outs of the session. I'll probably just mainly record stuff in the gym and then you'll probably catch me back for a little bit of a voiceover. But we're headed to the gym now. I've got my coffee, I've got my blow up. Even on leg days, I like to have a little bit of a pump pre because it helps me with connection and a little bit of focus more than anything. But we're feeling good. We're feeling strong. I am 129 pounds at the moment, so I'm 24 pounds above stage weight. So that's a nice place for me to be, if I'm honest, for progress. So yeah, I'm having my odd moments of like feeling a bit more uncomfortable at this stage, and I've spoken a lot in recent videos. Like, yeah, I can tell that my face is a little bit chubbier, but this is where I'm strong, this is where I progress, this is where the fun happens. So we'll dive into that a little bit more in the video and in the session today, but for now, I'm going to get to the gym, I'm going to put some tunes on. Anyone who's interested to know what I listen to during training, I always listen to literally like the same playlist. Sometimes I listen to different things, but I have this playlist that I have made on Spotify. I made this a couple of years ago now. So I made this in like the start of my off season, and I'll link it below. It has basically everything that I listen to during training. So most days, especially now, I head to the gym, shuffle play, and then off we go, and that is it. So you can let me know what you like to listen to when you train as well, because I'd be interested. But before we get stuck in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, set notifications if you want to stay up to date with any of the videos, and yeah, without further ado, we will crack on with today's session. All right, I'm joining you now for a little bit of a voiceover for this segment of the vlog. I actually was contemplating talking throughout the session, and I then realized I forgot my tripod attachment for my camera. So I couldn't use the microphone to speak to you, and anyone who has been to Ultraflex is going to know that there is no chance you're hearing me if I'm speaking to my phone camera. So we're doing a little bit of voiceover here, which hopefully you guys enjoy. If you like this, let me know. If you prefer to hear me talk throughout the video, also let me know, and I'll make sure to do my best with that in future. So we're going to go through movement by movement and run you through this session for today. As you can see at the start here, I'm just doing my usual warm-up work and also my ab training, which I did here on the glute ham raise and I really enjoyed it. I'll admit my abs were toast the day following, but the movement was great. I think there's something to be said for really just making sure you nail down bodyweight ab training. A lot of people want really good abs, but they don't even know how to connect with their abs. So they're doing a lot of really heavy weighted work, but they don't even know how to just connect and contract their abs in general. Same thing goes for everything, but I think with ab training especially, a lot of people don't have just awareness of their abdominals. So doing some good like bodyweight work there can definitely be so helpful. But usual mobility stuff here, you can see me doing some hip airplanes or struggling to do so, and all of my other just like floor work to basically get my hips feeling nice and mobile, my knees feeling good, also just gathering, honestly, like very simply a bit of blood flow to my glutes, to my quads, just getting my body ready to go. And then we pretty much dive straight in with the hip thrust. I think I actually did I did some calves before this. So I did calves on the donkey calf raise upstairs, but I didn't want to bore you guys with that. So I did my calf work and then I start with hip thrusts. I do 3 sets here. This session as a whole, like I said, is pretty damn long. And that's something that we're potentially changing moving forwards. But I do start this session off with
Hip thrusts, I do these with a barbell, which I may change to doing them with like a machine. So I might do the booty builder or Nautilus glute drive or something like that, because for me, especially, and most people will find this, that the simple act of just getting the barbell up takes a lot out of you. And if that's posing a bit of an injury risk, then that's potentially not necessary. I think I can get more out of less load with doing a machine or doing something else, and probably not beat myself up so much, especially when I already have like RDLs in this session, a lot of other movements where I'm already loading my lower back quite a lot. So you have to be very, very smart with how much lower back loading you have, how much loading you have throughout your entire spine, especially when it comes to wanting to maximize your leg training. I think a lot of females struggle with that, where they're just doing loads of squats and loads of hip thrusts, and before they know it, their lower back's smashed, and they then can't train their legs because they've injured their lower back, or they've got a hip injury or a hip niggle. And this is where you have to be very smart with using a lot of externally stabilized movements, a lot of movements where you do have, like I say, the external stability of a machine or like a leg press or whatever it may be, and just being very, very careful with what you do use. So we may swap these out for something else. We're going to manipulate volume a little bit here, because we tried bringing this up to 3 sets, and it's maybe likely now that we'll just bring it back down to 2 and do something that's machined a little bit safer and more predictable as well going forwards. And yeah, you just feel pretty battered after the 3 sets there, but good fun nevertheless. After my hip thrusts, I actually move on to then do my RDLs. So this is where, if you're also trying to get a lot out of your shortened work, so movements like this, so you're challenging the glutes in the shortened position, you're, for the most part, maybe going to want to put that at the start, because generally if you're doing anything that is challenging the muscle in the short, you're going to want to do that at the start where the muscle group is fresh, rather than doing it at the end of the session where the muscle group is fatigued, unless doing it for like a specific reason. You'll still get benefit out of it, but you'll probably get more out of it by doing it at the start. So that's why I do a hip thrust first, and then I go on to an RDL, which is obviously more of a lengthened challenge movement. You're getting more of that challenge in the lengthened position. So in that stretch, when my hips are back, when I'm lengthening my glutes, my hamstrings. So just to talk you guys through, I suppose, like my warm-up protocol on this, and also just my mindset, because this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with when it comes to an RDL. So first and foremost, I think mindset-wise, when it comes to my RDLs, I just attack these sets. Like, I look forward to them and I get excited for them. I do not feel any ounce of nervousness or feeling scared or feeling apprehensive. I don't doubt myself. I just go into them with confidence. And I used to doubt myself a lot, and that's where I would ditch some sets, or I'd fail really randomly because I'd overhype myself, or I just honestly, I wouldn't enjoy them and I wouldn't get much out of them. So I've worked on changing my psyche a lot with these to be very confident with them. And that's something that I take even here into my warm-ups, as you'll see, is like, I get aggressive with the bar for all of my warm-up sets. I don't waste energy on my warm-up sets, but I do take that same mentality of like being powerful, being confident, and giving the bar a little bit of a tug. Like, I step back and then I step in, and I repeat that process on every single one of my warm-ups so that it's predictable when I go into my working set. You know, so the exact same approach physically, mentally, and then when I go into my working set, I'm just taking that extra percentage of focus and energy that I know I can drive into it. But I always keep my warm-up setup the same. So on this day here, I believe I was working with, I did 117.5 kilos here for 10 for my top set. So this is one of my sets where I do a slightly higher rep range. I RDL in every single leg session, but I have different rep ranges that I work with. So I only do 1 set in each session. For me, that patterning of doing something frequently, but not necessarily having a huge amount of volume when I do it, helps me be more skill adaptive and have more confidence. And this is something you can maybe consider with programming. If, say, you have an RDL, but you're only doing it like every 10 days, and then you feel really anxious every time you do it, maybe do it more frequently, but do less volume of it if it's going to help you become more skill adaptive and get better at doing something. But I keep my warm-ups, like I say, the same. So you'll see I did a warm-up with 60. Before that, I actually just did the bar. So I did the bar for a good amount of reps. I also do some rows with that as well. Then I did 60 for like 6 to 8 reps. I then went to 80 kilos. I think I did about, again, 6 reps there. Then I did 105 kilos for like a couple of reps, my last warm up. And then I went straight in with my work. So I usually keep about 15 to 20 kilos within my warm ups, just a couple of reps. And then when I go into my work set, I can take on board all of my energy that I need into that. So the goal with your warm ups is always to get yourself as ready as possible without wasting energy. That's really the main focus there. So after we've done the RDLs, this is where I then go on to my isolations in this session. So I then do my lying hamstring curls and I do my leg extensions. Often people will say, you know, like, where should you place these? It honestly really depends. It depends on the focus of the session. It depends on what you're trying to do. So sometimes you might want to put your lying hamstring curls, your hamstring curls, your quad extensions. You might want to put those toward the start of the session if you're trying to increase readiness for movements that follow on from it. So trying to increase readiness for your squat patterns, for your leg press, or equally, if you're intentionally trying to reduce load on those movements. So sometimes you might not want to have those things first because you're actually trying to maximize as much load as you can from the earlier movements. And that's kind of what I'm doing here in this session is I have my hip thrusts and my RDLs at the start because I'm trying to get the most out of them. And then I place these a little bit later on in the session. If I was intentionally trying to reduce load a little bit on those movements, then I maybe would place them a little bit earlier in the session. But you can obviously look at your needs and then also look at your feedback as to how you feel with that setup. Does this feel like something that's working for you? Are you maybe accruing a few like niggles? Are you maybe getting a little bit carried away with certain movements? And then you can kind of manipulate the order and ultimately just the sequencing of that session. Slight change in the voiceover. We're now in AJ's office because AJ is making a meal downstairs. So I obviously need to get out of the way and I want some peace and quiet whilst I finish off this video. So I did my sets of isolations. I had just 2 sets on hamstring curl, 2 sets of leg extension. And after, you'll see on the leg extension as well, I actually have this hustler pad on here because I usually use the prime where I can get a decent amount of stretch. The prime was out of use in this session. As you'll see, I didn't even use the prime seated hamstring curl or lying ham. So I had to use a Cybex, which is fine, but I don't get much of a stretch on it. So this pad that I have on here just gives me more stretch, and it's a great little tool that you can use if your leg extension isn't great. You can always make manipulations like this on machines, like adding some pads to give you a little bit more range or give you a slightly better position on the seat. You sometimes just need to manipulate things a little bit. One thing you'll see me do here that I always do is a strap in to the leg extension. So if you struggle with keeping yourself locked down, yes, you can use things like seat belts, but pull yourself down, actually brace hard into the seat. So use your straps, pull yourself down, make sure that you're actually keeping like rib cage locked over your hips, keeping your core nice and tight, keeping yourself in position and locked down, because with every movement that you're in, you want to think about creating as much stability as you can so that the only thing that needs to move, the muscle group that you're trying to train, is all that moves. So like on the leg extension here, I just need to see knee flexion and knee extension. So I don't want anything else shifting around. Same thing goes even like, you know, when you're in a squat, it's like you're trying to see hip flexion, knee flexion as you come down, but you don't want your upper body and everything else moving around. Get yourself stable, get locked in, create that base point of stability. Think about what parts of your body need to move in order to train that muscle group that you're trying to train. And then that's it, and you'll get so much more out of it. So after we've done those isolation movements, we then move on to do 2 sets of belt squat. This is something that I've been doing over like the past couple of months because I started to get a few issues with this Smith squat, and I don't get on very well with the hack just because I can't really get great range or setup on it just based on my height. So with this, I'm able to get really, really good range, which is nice. I've enjoyed doing it. It does take a little bit of a while to get the setup right. So you can see I've even got the prime heel elevated wedge here just to kind of give me a little bit more forward knee travel and like knee flexion and not be limited too much by like ankle mobility. So if you struggle a little bit with ankle mobility, one, work on it, because I definitely used to always say, oh, I can't get range because my ankle mobility sucks, or because of my femurs. And yeah, we all obviously have different body mechanics, but you can work on things. You can work on having better mobility and getting access to more range. So don't just neglect those things and write them off. If you want better quads, if you want to train better, if you want to build your legs, work on those things that you can actually make better. Learn how you can train better rather than just writing off your limitations and not seeing them as things that you can improve. So that is something that I've still worked on, but obviously using the heel wedge here helps even more so, because particularly on the belt squat, it's naturally going to be a bit more hip dominant with its setup. So when I use the heel elevation, I can make it a little bit more knee dominant. So basically like leading with forwards knee travel. Which is what I want to get a bit more quad out of this. So two sets here again. By this point in the session, I am fairly taxed, but still moving along like really well. And this is the thing, is like this session is challenging, and we might amend it moving forwards, because I was quite beat up more than usual after this, but I was also coming in off the back of a deload. But sometimes you do push the limits, like you push the limits with your training to see how much you can recover from. And you know what? Sometimes it'll be too much and you realize we need to rein things back, but you'll never know where that limit is unless you go there. And you can't be afraid of pushing the limits, especially with leg training. So if you are somebody who does really want to build your legs, especially as a female, honestly, we can handle a lot more than men when it comes to leg training. We usually have a little bit more of a higher threshold when it comes to volume and what we can recover from. This is often sometimes relative to intensity to an extent, but the main thing really is like, don't be afraid, like I say, of pushing the limits and seeing what you can do, because you can probably do more than you think. And as I say, you'll never know how much you can do until you go there. Worst case scenario is you're like, I was a bit too sore from that, or it impacted my next performance, let's pull that back. And then you can take that on board from there. So just something to keep in mind with leg training if you are really trying to build that up. But 2 decent sets here. It's pretty hard to get the failure point on this, because the Vulcan strap is very different to when you're just like locked into the machine, but you just find a setup where you can get the best stability, like I say, as you possibly can on that movement. And then the final movement of this session is a single leg glute bias leg press, which I do here on the Atlantis leg press. I really, really like this piece actually. So you'll see that I actually bring the seat up here a little bit more, just keeps my torso in a slightly better position throughout this movement, so I can really, really drive my my knee all the way to my armpit to get as much hip flexion as I can comfortably without feeling like it compromises my lower back position. So that's why bringing up the seat here can really, really help. Some people sometimes find if they have the seat back, it feels a bit better. Just pay attention to obviously what feels good for you. But you can see here, in contrast to like the belt squat, where I was trying to get a lot more knee over toe to get more quad, here I'm actually trying to limit like a huge amount of knee flexion, and I'm actually instead trying to just get as much hip flexion as I possibly can do. So like my knee's not like traveling really beyond where my toe is here. It's staying like almost vertical with like my ankle position. So it's staying in line with that. And then my hip is coming to deep flexion, so I'm getting deep stretch on my glute, which is the goal on this one. Again, just getting nice and locked in and stable on here. It's the worst thing I see on leg presses is people just fidgeting around too much, like not pulling down on the handles, moving their torso around, letting go of the handles, shifting their position, pushing their knee with their hand. Just get yourself locked in and let your actual muscle group that you're trying to train take over the movement. So finished off the session there with just one set. So the session in a whole was calves at the start, abs at the start, 3 sets of barbell hip thrusts, 1 set of RDL, 2 sets of lying hamstring curl, 2 sets of leg extension, 2 sets of belt squat, 1 set of leg press. And you might think like that's not really that much work, but this session took me about 3 hours, because if you think about it, those are my working sets. It's not including my warm-up sets. There's a lot of setup work in this session. This is one of the main things that we're probably going to change, is just making a bit more efficient with movements. That's why certain exercise selection and machines that you pick is important, because you can make some sessions unnecessarily inefficient by just having a lot of like setting up and going on this movement to another movement, but not actually getting stimulus from it. So that's why you just have to be very, very smart with the way that you do program certain things to help you get the most out of it. And this is something that I'll often go back and forth with clients, with the way that we set up sessions and how they're getting on with progress. Is this taking away from what you can get out of it? But hopefully this video has been helpful for you to just kind of see what this session layout looks like. I'm hoping next time in the gym I'll maybe be able to actually talk throughout the session. That'll probably be a bit better. But if you've enjoyed the voiceover style like this, as I've done today, like I say, please do just let me know. But if you are, of course, looking to grow your legs and maybe level up some aspects of your leg training, hopefully this has been a helpful video to watch. That's obviously my goal at the moment as I'm in the off season, is making as much improvements everywhere as I can, but especially with my leg training. It's one area that I think, well, you can never really have too much leg. But for me especially, like, I know I can have much stronger legs, and I want to try and extract that as much as I possibly can do. And I'll run you guys through probably some of my plans for the rest of this specific pushing phase in off season. If anyone's interested to know what my plans are upcoming ahead, I can run through those in a later video. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you have enjoyed. Again, if you like the video, please do make sure to like, subscribe, comment, let me know your thoughts. If you've got any questions on any of the movements, anything like that, just let me know. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your day whenever you're watching this. I'll catch you all in the next one.